Well, earlier today, there was a major international hearing in the UK where 22 members of parliament from 9 different countries gathered to question Facebook over its policies and the spread of fake news. The social network's vice president of policy solutions, Richard Allen, represented the company instead of CEO Mark Zuckerberg, and the committee vocalized their disappointment.
Allen faced harsh criticism from the committee. As the hearing wrapped up, one member even suggested the company be broken up so they don't have so much influence. He had this to say.
The problem is Facebook. That's the problem. And we're talking about symptoms, but the problem is the unprecedented economic control of every form of social discourse and communication, that it's Facebook, that is the problem that we need to address.
Well, Allen was repeatedly asked why the company has failed to provide information and transparency during hearings and why Facebook has not followed up with several of the requests from Parliament. Earlier, we spoke to CNET senior producer Dan Patterson about how Zuckerberg's absence from the hearing reflects on the company.
After this year of drip, drip, drip of Facebook bad news, that Mr. Zuckerberg hasn't or won't appear sends 2 strong messages. One, it sends, like we talked about earlier, that maybe you are marginalized. In fact, I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but he said, I just don't have time to fly around and meet with all these countries. They responded by saying, we'll get in one place and talk to you in one place. We'll make this as convenient for you as possible.
And I think they even offered, you could Skype in or something along those lines. Like you didn't have to actually come here. Right.
Yeah. So it sends a message that not only you, the countries and parliamentarians, as you pointed out, but you, the populace, the people who live here and are impacted by what happens on Facebook, whether you are a Facebook member or not, again, in high-density countries, even if you're not a member of Facebook, if you're involved in a killing or a shooting, you're still impacted by what happens on Facebook. So it sends this message that you are not as important as the people in the United States or elsewhere. It also sends the message that after this year of drip, 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 I'm pretty scared. It communicates fear. And like the New York Times pointed out last week, one of their tactics has been obfuscation, deflection, and kind of dismissal of these allegations. So this plays into that and says, hey, maybe that headline in Times was pretty accurate because it's represented by your behavior. Your second question, which is what's wrong with their PR, I can't answer that. We have to ask them,
it just makes you kind of wonder. You have people around you who you pay probably millions of dollars to present an image to the rest of the world, and this one just looks terrible over and over and over again.
Well, Dan, I wanted to ask you just a quick question. A couple days ago, we found out about these documents that British parliamentarians have their hands on now, right? These were documents that are sealed in a California court that are private Facebook documents, and Facebook would like to keep them sealed.
They sure would.
In the UK, they say, well, they got it off of an app developer, and now it's in the hands of British lawmakers, and their argument is we can do whatever we want with them. Clearly, they've seen them. And there was evidence that they've seen them based on some of the questioning, because they were asking about sort of the crucial time leading up to the 2016 election, 2014, 2015. That's where the documents are from. Based on some of the questions, could you glean what maybe the lawmakers might have been reading about?
Yeah. So I'm pretty conflicted about this. On the one hand, look, this is a private company, and there are, if we look at our own communications, there's probably stuff that we would like to and should remain private. On the other hand, like you pointed out, this is communication about the run-up to the 2016 election, and we can all remember where Mr. Zuckerberg said, come on, we had nothing to do with that. There are indications in this cache of documents that Facebook was aware of different types of activity. So when I say different types of activity, I'm kind of searching for a euphemism that describes what we would call colloquially as political activity. So there was this reference to 3 billion calls to the API. That's the application programming interface. It's kind of like if you put a key into a lock, it's the tumblers that make the lock go and open the door to data and information. 3 billion calls to an API is a staggering number.
From Russia.
These were from a Russian IP.
Right.
So it is, one thing for them to say, hey, look, we just weren't aware ahead of time, and sorry that we downplayed it, but now we take it seriously. That's one thing. But for them to have this data and then use that tactic, it looks really disingenuous.
Right, right.
Dan, always great to have your insight, your analysis. Thanks so much for that. We appreciate it.